The Colts lost another winnable game against one of the league's elite opponents tonight. Now changes must be made going forward. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first post-game listen of the day. This is your daily Colts podcast, and we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. Hello, everybody. I'm Jake Arthur. That is Zach Hicks. And you know us from horseshoehuddle.com. I am your resident media member here live from Lucas Oil Stadium. And Zach is your resident film nerd for the site. And we are breaking down another stinker today, guys. This has become old hat for us, I think, at this point. But you know, we've been here with you at Locked On for a couple years now. So we are very well entrenched, and, you know, we soak in these kind of losses. You guys are always here with us. And, man, let's just dive right into it. So the elephant in the room the past several weeks now has been the quarterback play. Doesn't matter if it's been Anthony Richardson. Doesn't matter if it's been Joe Flacco. But certainly Flacco threw some potatoes out there today. You know, their first drive, pick six. So Flacco was 26 of 35 today, 272 yards, a couple touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, 4 turnovers overall. He, in the past 2 games alone, since he's been crowned the savior of the offense, 6 turnovers, just 2 offensive touchdowns, and 2 losses in very winnable games to some of the league's better teams. So, Zach, I'll let you have the floor here. What are your main takeaways from this? What is at the forefront of your brain when you think of this 30-20 loss?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest takeaway is, yet again, this Colts defense showed up and did enough to give their offense chances to win against a good playoff-bound team, and their offense just stank it up. I mean, the offense was not good enough whatsoever in this game, and unlike the game against Minnesota where, yes, you could point at Flacco, but you could also point at play calling, you could point at offensive line play, you could point at wide receivers, just nobody really doing their job correctly on offense. And this one, it felt like everyone on the offense, even the play caller for the most part, was perfectly fine. It really came down to the quarterback play in this game. And again, I just keep coming back to when you make that move, when you're sitting at 4-4, coming up on a really big stretch of games to determine if you're going to be a playoff team or not, and you make that win now move to your 39-year-old backup quarterback, it needs to work. This doesn't even come down to a Richardson versus Flacco thing. It really comes down to when you make a decision like this, when you publicly bench your young quarterback for a veteran backup that gives you no future, that is purely for the present, that move needs to work or it's on your head. So, you know, Shane Steichen's the guy who's taken it on the shoulder, on the chin, I guess, in the media, the guy who said the decision was all himself to everybody. I don't know who else was involved behind the scenes, but for Shane Steichen, this is a terrible look because you made this big move to win these pivotal games, to push yourself towards a playoff spot. And these last 2 games, your defense has played well enough to win you the football game. Your quarterback play has just been horrendous in this 2-game stretch. Like, absolutely horrendous. It's one thing if Flacco were just missing passes like Richardson was and you know, not completing what he needs to and not converting for first downs, but Flacco's also putting the ball in harm's way. He has been turnover prone these past 2 games. And in this one, you can't just spot the Buffalo Bills 10 points out the gate. Spotting Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills 10 points out the gate on gimme turnovers that shouldn't happen, you can't even beat bad teams by doing that. You can't beat the Buffalo Bills doing that. Like, they're lucky that they were able to even get back in this game and make it somewhat close at points in this game, because giving the Buffalo Bills 10 points out the gate is just a recipe for disaster. So, yeah, Joe Flacco, it just doesn't really give you anything at quarterback. Yeah, he completes a couple more passes, but if you're getting careless decisions, you're getting these 2 of these interceptions. I don't even know what he's looking at on some of these. I mean, the screenplay, you got to be a veteran and eat that play. Like, I don't know what you're doing on that screenplay.
He does not throw the ball away ever, it seems.
No, and then the first interception, what was he looking at? Like, what? He was fooled pre-snap, fooled
Yeah.
post-snap, and then the ball was not layered whatsoever. It had no oomph on it. I mean, it looked like we were watching 2022 Nick Foles try to throw that football. That ball had no drive on it whatsoever. And Taron Johnson could have called a fair catch on a 15-yard pass that he caught. Like, it was that bad of a throw. And then the other one was just a horrible miss that, again, we saw Richardson miss passes like that. But when you put the 39-year-old quarterback in, he's not supposed to be throwing the ball 30 miles over Alec Pierce's head to a safety that's yards behind him. So you get that. You get a quarterback who can't move in the pocket and can't negate sacks. So he's taking sacks whenever there's a little bit of pressure. And I just don't know what you're gaining here. I mean, even the run game had its best performance under Joe Flacco that we've seen all year. But even the run game, I mean, Taylor had 24 carries in this one. He had 3 that made up like 90 yards, like 90, 95 yards. He had 3 explosive runs, to Taylor's credit, made something happen on those. Outside of that, it was like 20 for like 13 yards. Like, it was terrible aside from those big explosives. I'm glad those explosives happened, but again, you see this impact with Joe Flacco where it's very difficult to run the football, at least at a consistent level. So you're constantly behind the sticks. You're having a quarterback now who's forcing passes and not hitting the open man. You have a quarterback who can't move in the pocket and can't create. And anytime he has to create, it's disaster for your offense. Anytime he has to think, it's disaster for your offense. And again, this was your win now move at quarterback to make this push to the playoffs, and it's blowing up massively in your face. Like, again, take the Anthony Richardson aspect out of this. I don't even care about the Richardson part of this. When you're committing to this veteran right here to be your win now savior this season, it can't be this bad, especially when you were when you made this move, you were in the playoff hunt. You were a 4-4 team in the playoff hunt. They had a win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that was a 2 quarterback job there, but they had a win over a good Steelers team. Like, they had some things going for them. Now they're essentially in win out mode if you want to make the playoffs. And they haven't looked particularly good whatsoever on offense these last 2 weeks when your defense has given you enough to win these games. So yeah, man, I don't know. Like, last year, I was very in on Shane Steichen. Even at parts this year, it's like, yeah, Shane Steichen is the coach for this team, but it's such an inexcusable mistake to do this, to make this move at quarterback and for it to regress your entire offense. Like, when your offense wasn't even good to start with this year, for your offense to regress this badly when you put in a 39-year-old quarterback who's supposed to be the guy who's win now, it's just inexcusable. So yeah, we're running out of excuses, running out of time for this Colts team. And I mean, they're one more loss to the Detroit Lions away from being pretty much out of the playoff hunt before the final stretch, before their bye week this season. So that's your 2024 Indianapolis Colts team right there.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not even out of the rough stretch yet. They're just right in the middle of it. And the awful thing about it is they really should have won these ones. These ones that they had no business winning coming into it, the defenses at least put themselves in position to win the game. And I think the thing that drives me most crazy about this is my keys to the game, they nailed them, and they didn't win. I said they needed to establish Jonathan Taylor. He, at a lot of times in this game, looked like 2021 Jonathan Taylor. So they did that, which could breed play action opportunities. There were some chunk plays achieved here. Obviously not enough. Now, Joe had a terrible game, and this is not an excuse whatsoever, but I don't want to be irresponsible and not mention that Bernard Ryman did get knocked out of this game, and Matt Gonsalves did not have a terrific performance. That's one small little footnote to it. I at least wanted to acknowledge that. But, they ran the ball. They did get some chunk plays in the passing game. Obviously, the passing game is a whole issue itself. They got to Josh Allen a little bit. I said they needed to do something to Buffalo's offense that was uncharacteristic because they were best in the NFL. They have given up the least amount of sacks, and they have the best turnover differential in the entire league. They sacked Josh Allen a couple times and had a little bit of pressure on him, and they forced 2 takeaways. So they checked both of those boxes with the pressure and the takeaways, and they somehow still didn't win. And the final numbers for the defense wind up being skewed because it's over 400 yards. It's 30 points, just like last week, over 400 yards. But when you consider the position the defense keeps getting put in because of the offense, giving the ball away 4 times, this defense is playing so much better than you would imagine. And going into a game like Detroit in a couple weeks, that's going to be important. But like, how long can this defense hold on until the dam breaks?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this team,
Right.
it's so hard to say anything positively definitive about them.
Yeah, one thing I'll say real quick is it does feel a lot like 2019 and also 2022 where the Colts defense held on quite a bit throughout the first half, a little bit past the first half of those seasons that ended up being non-playoff berth seasons for the Colts. And then when it got to the final stretch, when their legs gave out and they just couldn't hold up the weight of the terrible offense, they corroded and became this terrible abomination by the end of the season. And I'm scared that's the way we're going with this defense where look, man, we're what? They're 4-6 right now through 10 games. I would say this defense has been a net positive. Yes, there's some issues, and we'll talk about in our final segment today. The linebackers need to be better with their tackling and coverage. Safety play could still be a little bit better. Pass rush could get home a little bit more. Like there's still issues with this defense, but I think by and large it's been a positive year for the defense so far. But how much longer is that going to hold up when they're trying to hold up the weight of this horrible offense on the other side? And regardless of the reason for the horrible offense, some weeks it's the play caller, some weeks it's the players, some weeks it's the quarterback, or most weeks it's the quarterback. Whatever it is, this defense can't keep holding it up forever. And we even saw in this last drive in this game where the Colts defense had one of their worst drives in weeks because they have been holding up so much weight these last couple weeks. So yeah, the Colts defense I think has been fine these recent games. We'll talk about in our final segment, but they can't just keep holding up the weight of this Colts offense for so much longer because eventually your legs are going to give out and it's just going to be the floodgates open for other teams are going to start beating on you like we saw in 2022, like we saw in 2019. We've seen this too often under Chris Ballard, way too many times. If I can reference 2 times in the last 5 years under Chris Ballard, we're talking about a pretty big issue here. Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe Flacco was Cinderella last year with the Browns. He is clearly turned back into a pumpkin now with the Colts. We're going to talk about the rest of the cast of characters on offense here in a moment. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime. And that's why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like you. The fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave, we see you. What else gave you guys a bit of Colts fan fuel this week? Maybe it was Jonathan Taylor running the ball a little bit, the defense coming up with some stops, coming together against a common enemy on our post-game show. I don't know. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your jersey, the game day to-do list is always a mile long. And that's why limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide.
And also, guys, PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to $100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win on PrizePicks with as few as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is also the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Alrighty, Locked On Colts everydayers. We're back talking about this Colts offense in this 30-20 loss to the Buffalo Bills. And despite the team only putting 20 points in this game on offense, I think there were some good things shown on offense in this one. Jonathan Taylor got going for the first time with Joe Flacco at quarterback, which was good to see. Again, a lot of it came on 3 explosive runs, but those explosive runs still happened. We can't just say they didn't happen. You want to see a little bit higher success rate and more consistency going forward, but we will take a 21 for 114 day. He had over 100 yards rushing in the first half. So that kind of, again, explains where this day ended up going for the Colts. And I also want to give a shout out to the Colts' top 3 receivers in this game. And it kind of makes me feel like, look, man, just put Michael Pittman Jr. on IR. This season is lost. Let Alec Pierce, let A.D. Mitchell, let Josh Downs carry this thing going forward, because Alec Pierce, 4 for 81 and a touchdown in this game, had a really nice touchdown catch at the end, along with a really nice catch on the sideline for a toe tap reception late in this game. Did some good things in this one. A.D. Mitchell, career day, 6 for 71. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, all week on here, because we've been saying for weeks, like, get A.D. Mitchell on the field because Michael Pittman Jr. just can't move right now. It's time to get A.D. Mitchell out there. And then Josh Downs, Mr. Consistent, outside of the one drop in the red zone that would have been a touchdown. Probably the only time a pass catcher really let down in this game. But he still finished today with 7 for 72. So, man, Jake, I'm looking at this offense and I'm like, hey, Jonathan Taylor showed up in this one. Alec Pierce showed up. A.D. Mitchell showed up. Josh Downs showed up. The offensive line had some struggles. 3 rookies out there for majority of the game. They had some struggles, but for the most part, man, like, the supporting cast was fine in this one. Even the play calling, like the red zone touchdown to Tyler Goodson, I thought was a nice lead design play by Shane Steichen. There were open receivers that, Joe Flacco just missed. Like, I thought this was a pretty fine day from the supporting cast on offense today.
No, I thought, when we were thinking about silver linings in this one, I looked out and I was like, I don't want to say the passing game was lifeless. It just was clunky at the end, and it lacked fruit at the end of drives, basically. But we've seen games before without Michael Pittman Jr., and the offense as a whole cannot function. This is the first time we've seen the Colts without Michael Pittman Jr., and we've seen guys step up, and there's some life there. Like you mentioned, Alec Pierce is becoming a guy. Like,
yeah,
it's not just a flash in the pan thing. Like, this is a true playmaker for this team. Josh Downs, Mr. Consistent. It seems like he gets at least 7 catches with Flacco each time he's out there. A.D. Mitchell, not only was this a career best game for him, but all 6 targets. He got all 6 of them. This is huge. This is a building block game for a guy like this. We talked to Reggie Wayne this week out at the complex, and, take Anthony Richardson's benching aside, we all knew the assignment with Richardson was, he was just needed reps to develop, and it was going to take time. Same thing with A.D. Mitchell. The Colts just haven't pulled the plug there. But A.D. just needed more snaps, needed more game reps to get out there. And it sucks that it came at the expense of Michael Pittman Jr. being hurt. But, whatever it takes to get this guy on the field and get more comfortable being on the football field with his quarterback. Because we saw it from the first week. He was blowing by guys, but the chemistry with the quarterback just was not there. And we said from that very first game, God, he's looking really good. But once he starts connecting with the quarterbacks, it's going to start being really, really productive. And I'm hoping today was a big first step towards that, because whether or not you have Michael Pittman Jr. out there for however long, if you got a guy out there who's playing like this, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it can absorb some of the shock of not having Pittman out there.
Yeah, and one thing about A.D. Mitchell, too, is he's still far from a finished product. Like, this was a great step forward, but there was still that horrendous fumble on the first catch, which the Colts are very lucky to recover. Like, I was like, oh, man, another just A.D. Mitchell moment where he gets open, does the right thing, but just some issue pops up. And that's what we saw all season from him, where it was like, this guy gets open, but everything else is a struggle for him. But he calmed down after that fumble, hauled in every other target that went his way, looked really good doing so. And again, this is the guy who gets open more than any other player on the team, aside from the slot receiver, which is Josh Downs. But Downs, again, has a very specific role to get open. A.D. Mitchell is getting open as a boundary receiver, as an outside wide receiver, which the Colts really haven't had in a long time. So this is a great stepping stone game for A.D. Mitchell. It's a great stepping stone game for him. Alec Pierce, again, like you said, getting back to where he was early in the season and really producing in this one. I was really bummed that Joe Flacco pass went over his head for multiple reasons, but especially because it was another 30-yard gain for Pierce that was taken away because his quarterback couldn't hit him. I mean, how many times have we seen that this year with Pierce, where the ball has been sailing over his head when he's been wide open? I think he leads the team in receiving yards right now, but imagine how many more he would have with better quarterback play on those deep over routes, on those deep crossing routes, on open vertical routes that he's had. I mean, he's had production this year, but it feels like it could always be a little bit more with him. But that, yeah, he had some good plays in this game as well. So yeah, the pass catchers showed up. And I even think Tanner Bortolini on the offensive line had a fantastic day in this one too. There were a couple of really big plays from him in this game. Gonsalves really struggled, but the rest of the offensive line I thought was pretty fine outside of Gonsalves. So yeah, it was a good game from the supporting cast. It's just, again, you had to look at somebody when you only put up 20 points in a game like this, especially when your defense gave you 2 turnovers and gave you a 4th down stop in this one. You need to score more than 20 points. And the guy I'm looking at is the guy who threw 3 picks, the guy who fumbled, the guy who threw 3 other passes that should have been picked. I mean, the Bills dropped multiple interceptions in this game, like clear drop interceptions where, again, this could have been a Nathan Peterman type game from Joe Flacco at the end of the day if the Bills caught more of these passes. So I'm a little bit more encouraged by the offense in this game than I was in last week's game against the Minnesota Vikings. Still not where it needs to be because the quarterback play is so bad, but I was more encouraged at least by the rest of the players on offense from this game than I was last week against the Minnesota Vikings, where it looked like nobody wanted to be there and everybody was making mistakes.
Yep, I want more Will Mallory also, but that's for another day.
Why not?
Coming up,
why not?
Right? The dude makes plays.
Right.
But no, here in a moment, we're going to talk about the defense, the side of the ball that really held up its own end of the bargain, and Kenny Moore with some pretty strong words post-game. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NFL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply.
And also get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you get your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Alrighty, Locked On Colts listeners, we are back talking Colts, Bills. 30-20 Buffalo Bills beat the Indianapolis Colts in the Colts' own stadium, or kind of the Buffalo Bills' own stadium if you were really there in the crowd. And gosh, it really felt like a Bills home game in that one. I can't really blame the fans for that one with what we've seen from the Colts these past couple weeks. But another week where the defense, again, kind of showed out and did good enough things to win. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say the Colts defense was perfect. Allowed over 4 yards a carry, or it was like, I think 4.5 yards a carry if you factor in the Josh Allen scrambles and Josh Allen runs and stuff. So still not perfect in the run game, still over 400 yards allowed in this game. But again, the Colts defense allowed 23 points in this game. It was 16 points up until late in the fourth quarter. They allowed a basic put-away touchdown. But they essentially allowed 16 points for a majority of this game to the Buffalo Bills offense. They forced Josh Allen to 2 interceptions. He had 2 interceptions all year coming into this game. They had 2 sacks in this one. Like you mentioned, Jake, the Bills have been the best in football this year at preventing sacks and not allowing sacks. So it felt like a fine game for this Colts defense. Again, not perfect. It needs to be better. It can be cleaner. Linebackers can be better in coverage. Pass rush can get home a little bit more. But it's another one of these games, man, where you're looking at it being like, I don't think Gus Bradley's side of the ball is the issue right now. It's not perfect, but it's been fine these last couple of weeks. And so you go from this game where, Kenny Moore gets an interception, EJ Speed gets an interception, you get that fourth down stop, you get some red zone stops in this game. And then you go to the after part of the game where Kenny Moore is calling out his teammates in the locker room for not practicing hard enough, not giving enough effort. And one thing we know about Kenny Moore from over the years, he will always speak his mind. For better or for worse, he will always speak his mind. So I don't know, like, Jake, do you think this is about other players on the defense, other players on offense, just frustration with the team? Like, I know this thing's kind of spiraling right now, but you don't want to hear one of your defensive leaders say guys aren't taking this thing seriously enough,
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a little bit of everything because, I mean, he obviously sees things in the film room and on the practice field and everything that we don't see. I mean, we can see the finished product out here on the field, but, I don't think you say that without making certain observations throughout the week as well. And I can't pinpoint a certain group or anything. It was important that he was asked about the quarterback situation, and he seemed to rebuff the fact that, like, he's not talking about the quarterback specifically. But there are areas around him that just are consistently a little iffy. Like the linebackers, you see a lot of missed tackles, struggling to even be in the area in the gap where the play is being made. You see a lot of chunk runs, a lot of these games, like, even if they hold the team in check overall for the body of work of the game, there's plenty of times where guys aren't getting touched until like the third level because the first and second level, it's just a consistent problem. And this really was the tip of the iceberg because Kenny he went in on this after years of frustration. This is something that's been building for a long time. He referenced this is the same stuff that's going on year after year. So this is nothing new. But there's obviously something in here that needs to change. Like, I don't know if guys are just getting complacent or whatever it is, but, hopefully this is the type of thing where, Kenny stood up and faced the music. I mean, he had a good game, so he didn't really have anything to apologize for, but he went and spoke on behalf of the defense, basically, and the leaders, and said, what we're doing is not cutting it. And, what can you do moving forward? He's like, these changes needed to be made yesterday. Like, time is running out. The cracks are forming. So, I mean, this is not with any inside knowledge or anything, but this is about the time of a season for a lot of teams where you see players only meetings and stuff like that. I think they're ripe for one right now. But guys have got to take a long look in the mirror because we've seen so many of these guys playing uncharacteristically poorly or inconsistently to the level we know they can. And something's got to change. I mean, if it doesn't, obviously the season will just start dwindling and they could perhaps only be saved by the fact that the AFC South is such crap right now. They've got to take care of their own destiny. Kenny himself said he's tired of worrying about outside sources helping them get to the put. Like, he doesn't want to other teams losing, helping them get where they want to go. They want to control their own destiny, and he's getting tired of the fact that they're not taking advantage of it.
Yeah, one thing I will say real quick, and I know this would be more of a conversation for the week, obviously, because Kenny Moore's comments are pretty big news, honestly, with this. Not big news, but just noteworthy.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you guys haven't seen him yet, I did post our session with Kenny Moore after the game. So Kenny's on there, Shane's on there, Joe's on there. After this, I'm going to put Jonathan Taylor up there as well. So if you guys hadn't heard it yet, I have Kenny in his entirety up there.
Yeah, but one thing I will say with this is when it comes to the complacency that Kenny is talking about, I mean, this is a team culture where if you look at this 2022 team, especially on defense, they pretty much brought back every single starter from the 2022 team. It's almost the exact same starters, the exact same coaching staff from a 2022 team, which was the fourth worst in football. And a lot of those guys got rewarded with extensions and more money on their contracts, essentially. And I'm not saying that any of those guys were undeserved, but when you kind of build up this culture of if you're just kind of fine, you'll be set for life with this team. Like, there's not this standard of better than that. Where, Grover Stewart, I think, is a really good player. Kenny, I think, is part of this too. Like, good players, Zaire Franklin, good players. But when you have a season as horrible as 2022, should you be handing out extensions to everybody? Or should you be looking at other avenues to change up the defense? I mean, their big difference from 2022 right now is Laiatu Latu's kind of a starter on edge, and Jalen Jones and Sam Womack. Everyone else is the same starter from 2022 on a defense in an overall team that was horrendous. So it kind of gets to that complacency of like, things are never going to change, so why do I need to go above and beyond? I'm not saying that's exactly what Kenny's talking about here, but it could lead some credence to what he's saying. But overall, I know we're running short on time here, Jake, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about the big picture when this game just happened. But overall, again, I think a mostly pretty good game from Gus Bradley, pretty good game from the defense. Defensive line got some pressure on Allen. I wish they would have finished some of these sacks, but I'll take it. I thought Kenny Moore was fantastic in all phases in this game. The defense made some timely plays in the red zone, and also on that fourth down conversion. I mean, Zaire Franklin had a nice pass breakup on that fourth down attempt with a really good sim blitz by Gus Bradley. So overall, I'm not too down on the defense. It's kind of funny that Kenny's comments come after this game where it's like, hey, you guys have a 3-game stretch against 3 playoff teams. You guys have done enough on defense to win these games. It's kind of your offense on the other side each one of these times that's kind of been letting you down. But overall, I'm not too upset with the defense. I'm not too upset with the playmakers on offense. It's just, again, their win now quarterback forgot that he played for the Colts in this game. I mean, that's really the only way you can summarize it. Because if you're watching this game, I mean, it's shocking that he had nearly 70% completion percentage in this game, because there were like 7 passes that bounced off of 2 Buffalo Bills hands, you know. It was a crazy game to watch. But yeah, Jake, you have any other final words before we get out of here? Like, I can get us out of here, but whew, what just another Colts game.
Yeah, just another wild ride. I mean, hanging here with us, guys. I mean, I know we're all kind of going through this together, but I mean, we're here for you to, you know, we obviously love Q&A episodes. You know, we love interaction, the insider program, like all these things. If you want to commiserate, we've got plenty of avenues for you guys to chat with us or interact with us, you know, watch the content we're putting out. So hang in there with us. I know being a fan of the Colts right now is pretty frustrating, but hopefully we can, you know, give some further detail and context to the things that are going on.
Guys, we are 2 weeks away from draft content anyway. It's a blast to get into the draft season stuff. I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point, but we do appreciate you guys tuning in with us every single week. And thank you guys again for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NFL with 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly to get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings and reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here Tuesday afternoon.